Please welcome Minister Oh Song of the Embassy of the Republic of Korea for the opening remarks.
안녕하세요. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests. I'm so pleased to be here before you to make very short remarks because we are waiting for the wonderful presentation regarding the Korean food and followed by the Korean cuisine provided by the embassy. On the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between Korea and Canada, the embassy has initiated this event, the Embassy Speaker Series, to give the good occasion for the Canadian people and the diplomatic corps to know Korea very well. As the effort, as a part of this effort, we have 5 times of Embassy Speaker Series, and today is the 6th of its kind. And today we have a very special guest speaker who is going to share her expertise and knowledge about the Korean traditional cuisine and food with us. As you can see, the very beautiful picture with a brief the introduction. Yesterday, actually, I have a very small secret to share with you. Yesterday, I met her at the embassy, and I was a little bit disappointed to hear that there is no actual demonstration of her cooking tonight. But her cooking skills can be experienced through books available outside. I'm looking forward to the next opportunity to taste her cooking. And one more thing I will talk to is that our ambassador is not able to join us today because of his participation in Northern Tour arranged by the FED. But he asked me to send best regards to all of you and express his gratitude for your attendance and participation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Margaret Dickenson and her husband with big hand. Please enjoy the wonderful presentation and followed by the Korean food later on. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Minister Oh, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm absolutely delighted to see so many people here this evening. That is a real thrill for both Larry and I. And I just want to say that, even at the mention of the word Korea, I'm just tasting smoky, delicious, thin grilled slices of beef, and of course that's bulgogi, and then extraordinary barbecued beef ribs, kalbi, and soy sauce seasoned mixed vegetables and noodles, japchae, and of course kimchi. Now those all come together to dazzle my appetite for another Korean meal. Well, and of course today, for your reward for coming to this presentation, you're going to be able to taste this wonderful Korean food that they prepared for you. Well, let me start by saying that Korea is a peninsula that points southward from the northeastern tip of Asia. And it is, oops, I hope I'm not, is this too
Too closer to
too close? Should we go?
the speaker here.
That's right. Oh, too close to the speaker. Okay. So it is surrounded by 3 sides by water, and it also has, can you believe this, a 70% mountainous topography, which all in all means that Korea has access to a wealth of marine life. So that would include fish and seafood and also seaweed. And then it also has an extensive variety and abundant supply of herbs, shoots, mushrooms, and wild vegetables, which you will see is really included in Korean cuisine and which makes Korean cuisine really, really special and unique, as well as healthy. Well, Korea was ruled by several millenniums, and I mean 4 millenniums, by successive kingdoms and dynasties which ruled for several centuries at a time for 4,000 years. And I must mention this, that is from the time of the pharaohs. That's a long time ago. I don't really remember. However, what's interesting about these kingdoms and dynasties, you know, they really played a role in the history of the food, its culture, its etiquette, mind you, and imposed evolution of Korean food. Now, when I say imposed, you'll see what I mean during my presentation. Now, we're not going to go over 400 years of history, believe me. Korean food is all about harmony in nature. And also it respects the interaction between nature and humans. There are 5 cardinal colors in Korea. I think perhaps many of you might understand this. And those cardinal colors include blue, black, red, white, and a yellow. Okay, so now, the first cardinal color, I'm going to make you guess a little bit. And I don't think everybody's going to get what blue stands for. Blue is for wood. Isn't that logical? I won't blame it on the present-day Koreans here. Black is for wood. Water, I'm sorry. Black is for water. Sorry, water, thank you, Larry. And white is for metal. Now, that could be logical. Red, for sure, we understand, would be for fire. And then yellow is for earth. Now, these 5 colors represent the different elements. And the elements are important in that those elements, when they're presented in the Yin-Yang theory, it uses the principles that seemingly contrary forces actually are interconnected and interdependent in nature. That's why you see this yin and this yang. So we're talking about a yin and a yang cuisine tonight. With these colors representing these elements of nature, Korean cuisine strategically tries to include those colors of food in their dishes. Okay? And why? Because they feel that this encourages effective absorption of nutrients for the body, and also it stimulates the appetite through all these guessing games, through 5 tastes: sweet, sour, salty, hot, and bitter. Okay? Now, so, and many of the Korean foods do have all these 5 colored elements, and we know why. These are representing nature, and it's for a health purpose. So, the best example of the 5 color, representing the 5 elements and the 5 tastes, is bibimbap. I don't know if you've had that dish, but it's delicious. There's a photo of it at the back. Actually, what it's composed of is a 1 dish meal made of beef and stir-fried assorted vegetables, added to rice. There's rice underneath there. And also you add, of course, red pepper paste as seasoning. Then an egg is put on top in most occasions. Here we have a cooked egg, a fried egg, but actually I prefer when they drop a raw egg on it. And then you have the experience of stirring it in together, wouldn't you agree? And then it cooks from the heat of the rice and the meat, and it's ever so tasty. It really feels like you did something. Well, not very much cooking. Not very much cooking. So these are very important elements in Korean cuisine. Koreans regard food not only as a source of energy, but they also believe it to be a source of nourishment for the body, the mind, and the soul. So in this sense, it is very healthy, and there's always a strategic plan to it. In Korean cuisine, soy sauce, soybean paste, and red pepper paste are three of the essential fermented condiments, which are very important, and they are the ones that really combine to give a particular flavor. That it's a very complex flavor that you have when you use these, and it is absolutely delicious. But let me say that, when recently I was in Korea, well, not recently, about 5 years ago, and I must admit it was just wonderful to see these beautiful backyard scenes with different pots, earthenware pots, of both the fermented condiments as well as kimchi. Now these were homemade, of course. Well, as you see here, those are specially glazed pots so that they allow for the breathing and the fermentation of the products. Those are definitely like barrels, and so they would contain kimchi. They're not, you wouldn't have red pepper paste, that much red pepper paste. They would be smaller pots. However, to my astonishment, Larry and I had chatted with the ambassador's wife, and they told us that this wonderful age-old tradition is vanishing. And I was really quite disappointed. And so it was very logical, their first reasons, because, I understood before they said anything, there's wonderful commercial products on the market. So, why slave, cutting up cabbage? Okay, well, that's one reason. And the other reason is, of course, Koreans have really accelerated in apartment living. So where do you put those big pots? You've only got so much balcony if you're lucky. The other thing is that, and I couldn't believe it, there is now a production, and it's very popular to have kimchi refrigerators. And not just ordinary refrigerators, but these sophisticated, very untraditional monsters. They can actually regulate each compartment so you get the perfect amount of strength and fermentation that you want. Oh, by the way, Larry chose the photo. I tried to say that we could crop it. But for some reason he said it wouldn't give an idea what the kitchen looked like. And I don't think she makes very much kimchi, not even in that refrigerator. So anyway, then the ambassador goes on to say that, but a kimchi refrigerator is an indispensable appliance in a Korean home. And I felt so badly because, I do like tradition, and those pots are really attractive. Yeah. So maybe they have it in the house as decoration, those pots. So there are hundreds of varieties of kimchi. You saw all those tubs or those barrels, those jars of kimchi. There's hundreds of varieties. And this is because the varieties depend on the season and the region. And certainly, traditionally, kimchi was prepared in the fall, and it was to be eaten during the winter when vegetables were limited and certainly costly. Well, kimchi is generally made, the most common is made with Napa cabbage, white radish, garlic, of course, red pepper paste, and scallions, as well as salted fish. But as I said, there's hundreds of varieties. when I was in Korea about 7 years ago, I made my own kimchi, and this is whole cabbage kimchi. And then there is a wrapped kimchi with seafood, which I think sounds really tempting. I'm not sure I ever had that. And then there's stuffed cucumber kimchi, and water kimchi, white radish kimchi, whole radish kimchi, and the list goes on. I think it's a little bit like, your imagination. But kimchi is delicious. Okay? Continuing, I'm just going to refer to my notes because I don't want to miss anything, and I want to keep the rhythm going. Kimchi and other fermented products, as well as preserved products, are regarded as staples in the Korean diet. And not only are they used for seasonings, but also they are valued highly as a protection against diseases, obesity, also the growth of cancer, not cancer itself, but the growth of cancer. And also, it's supposed to boost your immune system, and ladies, to give a youthful complexion. I'll tell you where you can go down and get the kimchi at the end of the... Okay, so, and to say that it boosts your immune system, let me just tell you that, remember the avian flu about a dozen years ago? And Korea did not have one single case of avian flu. Guess what? The credit goes to kimchi. Exactly. And I'm not kidding, but there was an immediate and a huge demand for the export of kimchi from Korea to other countries in Asia. So that's really, really quite an interesting phenomenon. And I certainly appreciate knowing that. But for many Koreans, some foods are considered as medicine. And pine nuts for longevity. But who in this audience can afford pine nuts? At what are they, $43 a pound or something? Or no, 100 grams? It's ridiculous, pine nuts. So pine nuts for longevity. The bellflower root for sore throats. And then you have the idea of eating salted shrimp with pork so that it breaks down the fat. And to combat the heat of summer, and also to boost your stamina. Now, I understand it's both physical and sexual. So you have a choice of things that you can eat. There's ginseng chicken, and there's abalone, and then there's pig kidney, and eel and carp, and dog. Now, these aren't the little pets that you take around, on a leash. These aren't the pet breeds, but there is a breed of dogs that have existed for centuries that are still raised, but of course, only a very, very minute portion of the society really eat dog for the summer heat. Korean food has a great reputation as being extremely healthy and well balanced. And they have a diet, and you'll see tonight, the diet is really one that has these fermented ingredients, which are staples, and then they have a lot of vegetables, grains, soups, teas, and a variety of non-alcoholic beverages, which again are based in natural products. Continuing, I want to mention that there are other staples. Of course, the main staple in Korean food as well is rice. And Madame Ambassadrice would tell me that it's not a meal unless you have rice. Is that right? So there you go, right from the expert. However, there are other dishes that are loved and eaten widely, and those include porridges. Now, they're not the oatmeal and the cream of wheat type of things that we're thinking of, but they're abalone, chicken, pumpkin, and also a red bean porridge, which I think all sound rather tasty. And certainly there are noodles, noodles and noodles and noodles. The favorite noodles are made with buckwheat. And there are other noodles that are made with wheat flour. And then, as I mentioned at the start, the soya-scented and mixed vegetables and noodles, which I really, really like, the stir-fried, they have sweet potato flour in them. And again, I'll tell you where you can get them at the end of the program. So we're from the soups, we go on to soups, and with the soups, there are, of course, a wide variety of soups. They, like in Korea, both thin soups and thick soups. Yuk and tang, they're called. And they also have specialty soups for special occasions. Seaweed soup, which is absolutely delicious, is also called the birthday soup, wishing good health and fortune. Or it's called the post-childbirth soup. This is only for women. And that's, I mean, you can drink it for your birthday, but you can't drink it now. Well, maybe the fathers need it as much as the moms. But anyways, it's to replenish the nutrients in your body after childbirth. And then there are stews. A wide variety of stews. And the nice, charming things about most of the stews, they are made, prepared, and served in the glazed earthenware pots. And with them, I should say that is often including tofu, kimchi, and red pepper paste, or red bean paste, rather. However, my favorite stew is the mushroom hot pot. And the mushroom hot pot. Now, wouldn't that be your favorite stew? And remember, these are wild mushrooms. These aren't the things that you get at a supermarket. And so anyway, the mushroom hot pot. The other interesting thing is that it is prepared in front of you on a burner, which is absolutely, very theatrical and charming. And of course, it makes it all the more delicious because you feel that you are definitely part of it. So we have the soups, and there are other, of course, very lovely ingredients that are popular. But these are the main ones. Otherwise, we should also recognize that there are piles and piles and piles and piles, a wide array of side dishes. Now, in Korean society, they have different regions that produce different products, and also different wild vegetables. So this is important in the side dishes. So the side dishes, So the side dishes would include, of course, the wild ingredients, but it would also include meats and chicken and fish and seafood that would be boiled or grilled or steamed. And then it would include fish and seafood that was just raw, or sometimes even in very expensive restaurants, you can get them live seafood and live fish. But that's very rare. And then you have, of course, savory pancakes that come with all sorts of fillings. My favorite still is the vegetable one. And then we have vegetables. Wow, there's no limit to what they can do with vegetables. Of course, served fresh, and they all have their special condiments, but I can't go through this all. So they have fresh vegetables served, and then they have blanched and steamed, and they have pickles, and they have kimchi, and they have stuffed vegetables, which are absolutely delicious. I love them, love them, love them. According to tradition, the number of side dishes presented to an individual will indicate the type of dining table and will classify it as a 3-chop, or a 5-chop, 7, 9, or 12-chop table. And so the chop refers not to the stable foods, but rather to the side dishes. Okay? And my favorite, well, of course, my favorite Korean. So here you see a chop table. My side dishes are, of course, bulgogi, as I mentioned. And this is actually a child's presentation. I did this for a Korean, for a Canadian children's magazine. And that's the bulgogi, of course, up here in the corner. And it is really, really thin, as you can see. It's got such a beautiful, beautiful flavor. You don't serve it with a sauce at all. And then I love a kalbi, which, again, as I mentioned, it's barbecued ribs. But notice how thin. I mean, this is how thick the ribs are. They're just, they're about 1/3 of an inch. And again, I'll tell you where you can get that. And they're served with kimchi. And, of course, there are other favorites that I haven't mentioned. And those include seasoned fern sprouts, and also like the bellflower root, and the parsley bundles with beef are absolutely fabulous. And I think I'm a mushroom girl because I also love the mushroom skewers. So you see, besides those ones that we could identify with, there's all these other interesting ones. So continuing, we have all these different chop tables, and according to tradition, also, it came a time when the Joseon era, or dynasty, came to power, and that was in 1392. Now that sounds way, way, way back, doesn't it? But they ruled for 5 centuries. And the end of the Joseon dynasty was actually in 1910. Now that's not that long ago. Now again, I can't remember that, but I mean, it's not that long ago. 1910, come on. When you were born, a few decades later, 1910 doesn't seem that long before. So anyway, at that time, the Joseon dynasty decided that the number of side dishes you had on the table were indicated by your social level. And in other words, for your social class, you were only allowed a certain number of side dishes. The 12 chop table, well, that was reserved for nobility and royalty. But let them have it. Maybe they've got all those servants to help them, because this is of course extravagant, but it's a lot of work. A lot of dishes, Larry, to wash? we have a division of labor in our house. However, it's interesting to note that the different traditional dining traditions and tables are coming back, particularly in high-end restaurants and for special occasions. So we haven't seen those go. As a matter of fact, there's an acceleration. Now, for the everyday family, for everyday meals, food is actually served family style. Bowls are put on the table and you help yourself. Oh yes, so now, we're dining, we've had our food. Now, what about dessert? Are you waiting for dessert? For Koreans, the concept of dessert really doesn't exist. Sorry. Okay, so what they really do is serve fresh fruit at the end of a meal. And now, I understand that those lovely little rice cakes that we would like to have for dessert and the crispy, light sweet cookies and other sweets, they're actually, in the Korean tradition, in the Korean home, they're for having it with tea between meals, not for dessert, okay? So you can fill up on the savory because you're not going to get dessert. Oh, I'm sure there'll be rice cakes or something. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now, I think it's time to have a little chat about beverages. Okay, this is a question that everybody should have an answer. What's the most well-known beverage? Absolutely, soju. Okay, that's easy. Yeah. But there are lots of other beverages, including many types of beers and wines. Again, this was a little demonstration of the making of rice wine when I was in Korea. And they also make wine, though, from fruits like cherries, pomegranates, plums, and quince. And wines from different types of herbs. So they have herbal varieties. Well, of course, ginseng would be among them. In terms of non-alcoholic beverages, they've had a real array of non-alcoholic beverages for centuries and centuries. They're very popular in South Korea. Of course, there are fruit punches, and then there are sweet rice drinks. And certainly, tea and tisanes made not only with green tea, but also with fruits and flowers and roots, grains, and ginseng, and of course ginger. So it's really, you can see this, as I go through, healthy, 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 healthy. Hopefully our products from the West don't invade them too much and spoil their healthy diets. Now, of course, we can't talk about Korea without the Korean tea ceremony. That actually originated in the Buddhist temples in Korea. Now, the Buddhist temples were before the Joseon dynasty. I said from 1392, that was the Joseon on to 1910. Okay, so this is for 4 centuries before that. So we're going back, the 9th century. Anyway, during the Buddhist time, the tea ceremony developed, and it was very popular. Well, then, Joseon dynasty came along, and this is a little bit of political intrigue. If you think that we only have political intrigue, in our world now, we've always had it. So anyway, when the Joseon dynasty came along, they adapted the Confucius doctrine, which meant Buddhist practices stifled, tea drinking down, and it's only been recently that the Korean tea ceremony has been reinstituted, and Koreans are being encouraged to practice and to understand part of their cultural legacy. So tea ceremonies are really coming back, but they're very, very special. And if you've got a little bit of time, you can take it, but don't think you're going to run in and have a cup of tea. This isn't, Tim Hortons or Starbucks, or, and it won't be chai, it'll be something, traditional. When we turn to table settings and to the etiquette traditions of beverages and eating, first of all, they have all of these different types of table settings. But, those table settings really are reserved now, as I say, for special occasions. However, there are some rules that had applied. Now, whether they still always apply all over, I don't know. I don't think so. But at the table, really, conversation should be kept to a minimum. I wouldn't be very good at that. And also in low tones. Okay. For individuals, you get a bowl of rice and a bowl of soup placed in front of you. For sure, the soup is always on the right, and the rice is always on the left. And to the right of the soup, you would have this long-handed silver soup spoon. To the right of that, you would have...
It's on the floor there.
Oh, yeah. You would have chopsticks, okay? So it's chopsticks, spoon, soup, and then your rice, okay? That's immediately in front of people. Yeah. In Korea, they like using these silver chopsticks. Or they also have them now in stainless steel. But they're little brats to handle. I much prefer the little inexpensive wood ones you tear apart and little food sticks to them. You really have to know what you're doing. But 2-year-old Korean children will be able to pick up a peanut or a pea or a grain of rice with this. I mean a dry grain of rice, not a sticky one. Now, as I mentioned, So you've got the soup and the rice placed right in front of you. The other dishes are placed around you, okay? And you use the long-handed spoon for eating. No Koreans answer. Soup and rice. Interesting thing. Okay, and then you use the chopsticks to eat everything else. Okay? And you don't use the two together. Now, one of the things about the chopsticks, and this is a real no-no for me, you don't go into the bowls and pick out what you want and eat those. You eat everything. You're not supposed to be picking for the yum-yum ones. Okay? And the other thing, when you're eating hot soups or drinks, especially noodles, I don't think there's a polite way of saying it, but no slurping. And you're supposed to keep the sipping down to a minimum. You're supposed to be quiet when you sip. In Korean tradition, all the plates are put on the table at once. There's none of this business of courses. Soup doesn't come as a course. Soup is there in front of you right from the start. Okay? And if you're eating with elders, of course, they start first. And you do not continue to eat when they're finished. Okay? When they're finished, you're finished. Okay? If you're hungry, and immediately go away from the table, and then you can come back. or meet in the kitchen and have the rest of it, okay? And at the end of the meal, you place your chopsticks and your spoons in the original position. Now, something we could probably learn from Koreans is that they enjoy their food. I mean, food, they say, is meant to be enjoyed. And it's meant to pay tribute to those who have produced it. So isn't that a nice policy to adopt? Instead of rush, and run away from the table without saying thank you? No. Okay, so that's a great idea, I think. I'm way behind myself. Of course, there is also an etiquette in drinking, particularly when you are served by elders. And so, when you're served by elders, you hold your glass with both hands like this, okay? And when you return your glass, you return it with your right hand, and you take your left hand and you put it under your right elbow. When you pour with your right hand, and you place your left hand under your right elbow. Now I understand that this was because, this is one theory, that perhaps if you didn't put your hand here, perhaps this free hand could hold a dangerous weapon or poison. So anyways, I think that there's a good reason for it. When you are in company, you never pour for yourself. You always pour for others, and others pour for you. Okay, so that's pretty logical. I think we can all understand that. But I don't want anybody, when I serve coffee or something, I don't want anybody to hand their coffee cup like this, thinking that I think that they're going to have a dagger or something. No, that can be. Just relax on that. But it's interesting that many of these traditions are still done today. I noticed that, Mr. O, you handed your business card with 2 hands. Yeah. So, all in all, the cultural heritage of various Korean cuisines have evolved over thousands of years. And regional cuisines were the first to evolve, of course, these little pockets all around South Korea. Interestingly, though, that since ancient times, kingdoms and royal courts had, or indulged rather, I shouldn't just say had, indulged in a cuisine of their own. And it reflected, of course, the opulence of the ruler. Over time, the Korean royal court also adapted and assembled various regional specialties from different regions, and they brought them into the royal court cuisine and served them to the royal family. As Korea Korean kitchen maids, which were drawn from all over Korea, retired. They went back to the region, and guess what they took with them? Those regional recipes from all over, and as well as the royal cuisine recipes. So there was a fusion. They blended those recipes with their own. So ladies and gentlemen, you can see that this was the start of regional or a national cuisine in Korea. Regions coming together, basically through the retired kitchen maids. We also have to talk for a moment about what's very popular internationally even, or talked about at least, is the Korean temple cuisines. And this relates to the Buddhist time, and they actually started in Buddhist monasteries. And they tended to use seasonal ingredients, definitely organic and vegetarian. They too had the influence of having the benefit of having some of those retired royal kitchen maids come back to the regions, and they became nuns in the temple. So again, you had the fusion of regional cuisines coming into the temple cuisine. Today, what we call Korean cooking probably is based on Korean temple food. Going back to where I first started, South Korea is a country with a topography that has 70% mountainous areas. Okay? Also, there was a period of time when Korea shut itself off from the rest of the world. So it was called a hermit kingdom during that time, which meant that it's only been in the last 100 years, the last century, that Korean cuisine has really developed. I mean, a national cuisine with the the establishment of modern transportation links all over the country, connecting different regions. Then a truly national Korean cuisine took hold, and there's no doubt you have a national cuisine. It's very difficult when people ask me, what's Canada's national cuisine? Wild rice, beaver tails. But it's really very difficult to say what our national cuisine is, because our national cuisine is, a part of so many cultures here in this room. So talking about Korean cuisine is much easier, much easier. And just recently, and I mean in the last number of years, the Korean government has proudly designated Korean royal cuisine as an important, intangible cultural asset. And as I say, you see the resurgence of this, and it's really very spectacular. It's really, if you go to Korea, you have to at least try once having the Korean royal meal. Oh, and I can't forget one of the most important things. Korean street food. Now, Korean street food is very inexpensive, and they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and everything in between. The idea with Korean street cuisine, you can buy them from carts, of course, and you can also pick up wonderful Korean cuisine at night, actually a whole meal, in these dimly lit, alluring tents. And Larry, I always wanted to go and have dinner in one of those little tents, but we sort of didn't feel that we might have belonged there. Coming home in our embassy car, stopping in front of them. But anyways, they were absolutely charming. However, we also can get Korean street food at, of course, roadside rest stops. And here you see a picture that I took. And they serve a variety of things. I think this one would be a scrambled eggs with toast or something. But they serve, wonderful steamed rice rolls, instant noodles, of course, fritters, sugar-stuffed pancakes. I'm not allowed too many of those, though, And then even roasted chestnuts, but you know, it's a whole gamut, and it's really all very, 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 very tasty. I have to say, as I draw to a conclusion, that I really do believe that Korean foods and flavors certainly are gaining interest, profile, and popularity internationally. And why not? It's extremely healthy, it's tasty, and the recipes are, and the presentations too, are now being simplified, so that they're much more usable for our everyday lifestyles. I would also like to say that when I say tasty, I really mean tasty. So, did anybody see the article in the Globe and Mail on the 7th of April this year? And it talked about Korean fermented foods being studied and analyzed by research chefs and international companies in an attempt to concoct the next new flavors from microbes and molds. Okay, and let me read you this. In a world where flavors are becoming increasingly redundant and the same, it's refreshing to taste something that's bright and new, even though it's rotten and old. Well, old, perhaps, rotten, well, so dramatic what it is. And then, more on the positive side, last week's Globe and Mail, I don't know if you read the food column by Lucy Raverman, but she says that the Korean red pepper paste, gochujang, is now becoming more popular than any other chili paste. And here I've been using sambal leek since our time in Indonesia, so I bought a package and I'm starting to use it. Okay, I don't find it the same as sambal leek. It's different. It's more pasty, and it gives a lot of texture and flavor to food. Where sambal leek, be very, very careful how you use it. I promised to tell you where you might pick up some of these products, and I go to a little store that's just on the west side of Bank Street, north of the Queensway. So it's right there, and there's a large gas station on the corner, and then there's this Korean store. And not only can you pick up kimchi and seaweed salad and seaweed and all of those things, all sorts of sauces, but you can also buy bulgogi meat and kalbi meat, because it's really difficult to get. They say ribs. Well, you can, no place that I can see my supermarkets, but I don't run all over town, have beef ribs that are cut, a third of an inch thick. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank, first of all, the ambassador and his wife for having invited Larry and I here. And that was very, very kind of you. And Dr. Chung for doing all the arrangements. She had a lot of work. And thank you, Mr. Oh, for introducing us. And Mr. Kim for your participation in all these Korean events. And certainly to the audience for coming. What lovely, lovely, lovely people for you to come out tonight. And that really, moves Larry and I enormously. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And I want to thank my very loyal and efficient and I was going to say unpaid assistant. But no, it's not unpaid. We have a deal. He gets paid exactly the same amount that he paid me for cooking for those tens of thousands of people.
Yes,
okay.
Of course. If any of our guests have some questions for our speaker today, please raise your hand and
Yes.
This is a very sensitive question because it brings back a period of sort of tragic part of Korean history. But what, if any, influence was left behind in Korean cooking by the Japanese occupation?
I think that there was a great appreciation for the Korean cooking, and I think that the Japanese took back a lot of the Korean recipes and the Korean theories about natural cooking and whatnot. And I also feel that in terms of maybe what the Koreans might have picked up from the Japanese, and which we experienced in many restaurants, was the bento box. You know, it's very practical. It saves us all those side dishes. Easier to wash than all those dishes. But I think that it was the Japanese that actually learned from South Korea, because South Korea was isolated, and they really stuck to natural foods and cooking techniques. And I think that it was, well, you just have to see how many Japanese are in Korean restaurants these days, especially in, all over the world. You're welcome.
Thank you. My name is Dennis. I enjoyed your presentation. I had a question that's tied a little bit to food. When we visited there recently, we noticed that a lot of the great restaurants were near karaoke bars. And I was just wondering, who is the best karaoke singer, yourself or Larry?
Well, in our history with the Foreign Service, I think we have to say it wasn't us, but it was an Australian ambassador to Indonesia. And as a matter of fact, we were a little bit naughty, because when the party got to an end and it was time for people to start leaving, and people had started to leave, well, then the Australian ambassador would say, well, let's have some karaoke. So Larry and I would, we have to get home, and we did have to get home. But still, so we're not, but Larry and I both like to sing, but karaoke usually gets on a little bit later. Any other questions? Yes, Sandra.
Margaret, could you just tell us how you actually make kimchi? We talked briefly about how it's fermented, but some of the leaves you said are stuffed. Could you maybe just walk us through a process?
Well, I don't make kimchi right now. Yeah, can you tell us how to make? Who tells how to make kimchi? I mean, I made kimchi in South Korea, but
You have your own recipe.
Yeah, but no, I think I'd rather have someone who's qualified here to talk about making kimchi. Dr. Chong?
My in-laws, my mother-in-law and my mom makes
Mrs. Lee, can you tell us how to make kimchi?
How do I? Well, I second that I buy kimchi, but anyway, before I answer that question, Margaret, you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
I grew up in Korea with the Korean food, and here as president of Canada-Korea Society, in fact, we did the third Taste of Korea event last actually February during the Winter Road, when we invited Jeju City delegation with the mayor and so on. So in fact, collaborated with one of the Korean restaurant here. We really created a special recipe. Before twice, we also studied with that chef, looking into, you were talking about the palace cuisine. So we had twice presenting the Korean palace cuisine, so which was very, special event. What I would like to comment on it, you captured really a good essence of the Korean culture and the food culture, especially coming from Confucian society, and also history and the Asian culture, and then also, of course, you mentioned 4,000, we call it 5,000 year history. So I thank you for it.
Thank you.
And as you mentioned that the Korean cuisine is becoming worldwide popular now, and very much thankful to the Korean government that they really provide the funding and then also a lot of initiative throughout the world. So even if you go to Paris, you can actually enjoy really ethnic Korean food. So the world is changing. When I remember when I came to Canada in 1977, and we couldn't even buy any Korean, groceries and so on. So I remember, and it's quite changed. So I thank you for it. And talking about kimchi, I will make it very quickly. Kimchi, there's hundred different kinds of kimchi. Although I'm not very expert in making, basically, if you make the cabbage kimchi, you marinate in a salty water and then squeeze them, rinse it out, and then you make inner the stuffings, which varies from anything. So you mentioned a lot of ingredients earlier, which means that a lot of the vitamins and calcium and all kinds of ingredients. That's why all Koreans are very healthy. And also the drinking culture. The Koreans would never be satisfied with a one time just go out and drinking. After you start with a little soju and makgeolli, and then the next turn you all go to second place, and then you go with a beer and something a little bit more sophisticated drinks, and then of course you don't stop there either. You go to third place, and then you go into the whiskey and some other. So this Korean culture, unless you grow with it. I don't want to make it long, but I think what I'm just wanting to make some joke, but Korean people, the culture basic is food. The social gatherings, family gatherings, and even if some Korean soap opera, half of the scenes are at the table. So food is very, very important. Thank you.
So to answer your question, that's more or less how I made my kimchi. But to be truthful, but I haven't made it for a while, so I don't want to answer it in case I'm wrong. But I do make a cucumber kimchi, which is really cheating. And I use the little Lebanese cucumbers, and I slice them very thinly, and I sprinkle them with sea salt and with the red pepper paste, and also some rice vinegar. And that's my cucumber kimchi. And I love it. It's nice and crisp the first day. Larry likes it the first day. And it lasts for, at least a week or so. But of course it gets softer and softer and softer. So it's all mine after that, after the first day. But that's my basic cucumber kimchi. Yeah. But I'll tell you who makes really, really, really good kimchi. And he's not here. Because he came ill today, but it's Ronnie, the former food editor of the Citizen. So I've stopped basically making kimchi because Ron sends me kimchi all the time. So he makes a fabulous kimchi, but he has a secret recipe. And if you can convince him to give him your recipe. Okay, so any more questions?
I was just wondering what your favorite Korean restaurant is in Ottawa.
Oh, well, there's a kimchi. It's on Preston, I believe, isn't it? Yeah. It's very nice. But to be truthful, I really can't recommend a Korean restaurant because I cook at home. And then we're out so much. So I really don't go to a lot of Korean restaurants. I don't go to a lot of restaurants, period. But, I understand that the one on Preston Street is supposed to be excellent. So try it. Okay? Okay. Any other questions?
I have one question.
My name is Terry Kip. I'm a retired physician. I wonder about there's some kind of the research and the experts to stomach cancer was saying that Koreans are consuming quite large amount of salt, and we are taking about more than twice of WHO approved, WHO recommended the dosage of less than 5 grams. My question is, what do you think about Koreans should modify our eating habit about salted food, and also number of research papers and stomach cancer expert was saying that the high salted food and pickled and fermented food are contributing development of the stomach cancer. And Korea is highest stomach cancer ratio in the world, followed by Mongolia, Japan, China, and the Latin America, East Central Europe, and some part of Russia was high, the stomach cancer. My question is, any Korean food, anything indirect or directly contributing development of stomach cancer?
Well, I'm not a physician. Larry and I did start out with that medicine, but we're not physicians or doctors or veterinarians. But I think that, like anything, things in moderation. And I understand that you shouldn't eat too much salt. You shouldn't eat too much fat. You shouldn't eat too much starch. I mean, everything in moderation, I think, is what. And in terms of stomach cancer, I have no idea on statistics on that. I just know that salt tastes wonderful. and don't take away my spicy, and those condiments are so important in enjoyment of life. I hope that they're not cutting back on the life of life. I don't think they are. And I think they're very healthy, but again, moderation. And I think that when you're using some of these products, you just try to use less or try to get things that are salt-free. There are so many products on the market that are salt-free, and I think that pretty soon we're going to see even salt-free kimchi is at least salt-reduced. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Yes, please.
You showed me about the picture of refrigeration and all the food preserving outside.
Yes.
After introduction of the refrigerator in Korea, I think about 1960s, 70s, the incident of Helicobacter pylori, which is indirectly or directly contributing the development of cancer. So the Helicobacter pylori has been decreased. So that means prior to introduction of the refrigerator, before, maybe many Koreans consuming something, contaminated food or some spoiled food. That's why the large number of Helicobacter pylori. But after refrigeration introduced, then number of Helicobacter pylori came down quite fast.
Those are very interesting statistics, and in some ways we could understand that because everybody doesn't have a controlled, hygienic, personal system at home, and we don't know how long the pots were sitting out there, how long they were cleaned, if they were contaminated. And refrigerators, they should give controlled temperatures, and I'm sure that they've been well tested, and that they give the correct amount of temperature, the correct degree, and the correct time, and yeah. Okay, so shall we say that it's time for your treat?
Thank you very much. I think we're all now eager and ready. But before we do so, we would like to, in appreciation, we would like to give you a commemorative plaque in honor of your time today. So if you can please come up, and the Minister O can.
Oh, how sweet.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Mr. O. That's very, very nice.